Welcome to Podkey Slopcast, where AI launches, valuations, and strategy claims get pressure tested. A lot of the loudest AI news right now is really three different stories tangled together. What the models can do, what the tooling around them can do, and what investors need everyone to believe those things are worth. Start with Opus 4.8. The most interesting claim is not raw intelligence, it's honesty. Early testers say it's around 4 times less likely to hallucinate or bluff, and more willing to say it doesn't know. If that holds up in production, that matters a lot more for legal work, compliance, and other high-stakes use than a tiny benchmark bump. And the benchmark story really is tiny. There are gains on things like Sweetbench Pro and Internal Bench 2.0, but they're incremental, while GPT 5.5 still leads on Terminal Bench. So if the public reaction feels muted, that may be because benchmark leadership is losing power as a narrative. People increasingly care whether a system works inside an actual workflow with tools, memory, checks, and retries. That gets to Cloud Code and Anthropic's dynamic workflows pitch. Hundreds of sub-agents, task-specific models, adversarial checking, and one headline example converting a 750,000-line Zig codebase to Rust in 11 days with a 99.8% test pass rate. That's a striking result, but it's also exactly where listeners should separate capability from packaging. Was the breakthrough the base model, the orchestration layer, the evaluation setup, the narrowness of the target, or all of it together? Right now, the strongest supported answer is all of it together. A lot of commentators are basically saying the visible product leap comes more from the harness than from the model delta. That doesn't diminish the model. It changes where the value is captured. If that's right, then the competitive question shifts from who has the smartest model on a leaderboard to who can turn a model into a reliable system with decomposition, verification, and cost control. Anthropic seems to know that the Opus release wasn't framed as a pure model flex. It was bundled with workflow, tooling, and a preview of a future Mythos-class model that's supposed to go beyond Opus. So the strategic signal is pretty clear. Anthropic is trying to sell an integrated AI stack, not just a prettier API endpoint. Then you get the financing headline. Anthropic's reported Series H pushed its valuation to roughly $965 billion, alongside a reported $47 billion revenue run rate. Those are eye-watering numbers, and they tell you less about settled economics than about market expectations under extreme competitive pressure. A valuation that high says investors think Anthropic could become foundational infrastructure, a major application company, or both. It does not by itself prove durable margins, defensibility, or that today's revenue quality matches the implied future. Still, it's not a random vanity figure. If enterprises are buying integrated workflows rather than just tokens, that can support bigger revenue stories than commodity model access alone. That brings us to enterprise strategy, and the law firm example is unusually revealing. Kirkland & Ellis is reportedly putting around $500 million into an internal, partner-level AI knowledge base meant to replace outside tools like Harvey and Thomson Reuters. On one level, that sounds extreme. On another, it follows a pretty rational logic. Elite firms sit on proprietary know-how, privileged workflows, and a lot of expensive repetitive work. If AI can compress that into internal systems, they keep control of data, process, and economics. The chairman's suggestion that this could automate discovery and routine litigation work is especially important because it points past efficiency into business model stress. If routine legal labor gets cheaper, the billable hour doesn't disappear overnight, but it does come under pressure. Now, the counter-argument is strong too. Bespoke AI can become a trap. Bloomberg GPT is the cautionary example people keep citing. A specialized model can look smart for a moment and then get overtaken by larger general models, improving faster. That's why the smarter version of build doesn't necessarily mean training your own frontier model. It may mean owning the data layer, workflows, guardrails, and interfaces while swapping underlying models as the market changes. That distinction matters even more if token economics are shifting from subsidy-era abundance to scarcity-era rationing. When compute gets tighter or pricier, firms care more about routing, governance, and cost visibility. Internal platforms become a way to manage access, not just customize outputs. So the critique of simply buying point tools lands pretty hard. If an enterprise has 5 AI copilots with no coherent architecture, that's convenience spending, not strategy. The KPMG Client Zero idea gets attention because it flips that. Use the firm itself as the first real deployment environment, build internal muscles, then productize what actually works. That's more painful up front, but probably a better test of whether AI is changing the business or just decorating it. OpenAI's GPT 5.5 update is a quieter story, but maybe a more realistic one. The free-tier instant model reportedly got less bullet point happy, more factual, less sycophantic, better in multiple languages, and noticeably stronger at coding, with users praising simple prompt web development results. None of that sounds dramatic, but deployed models shape habits. If the baseline product millions of people touch gets incrementally better, that can matter more than a headline benchmark swing in a premium model. And because GPT 5.5 still appears strong in direct benchmark comparisons, including leading terminal bench against Opus 4.8, OpenAI remains the reference point. Anthropic has to beat not just in labs, but in everyday expectations. Cognition's new funding round, $1 billion at about a $26 billion valuation, is another signal that investors think agentic software development is becoming a real category. The eye-catching numbers are enterprise usage of Devin rising tenfold and Cognition's own internal code contributions going from 17% to 89% in 3 months. Those figures suggest something meaningful is changing, but they're also easy to overread. Contribution percentage is not the same as code quality, architectural judgment, maintenance burden, or net developer productivity. Still, when internal contribution gets that high, it stops looking like a toy demo. It suggests agents can already absorb a meaningful share of implementation work, especially in environments built to accommodate them. The second-order effect is less about replacing developers outright and more about changing team shape. Fewer people may spend their time typing routine code, and more may spend time specifying, reviewing, integrating, and deciding what gets built. Finally, Meta may monetize excess AI compute to offset weak returns on huge data center spending. That's easy to frame as a side hustle, but it points to a broader structural issue. If frontier AI requires enormous capital outlays, then spare capacity becomes too valuable to leave idle. If Meta really sells that capacity, it starts looking a bit more like an AI cloud competitor to AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. That would blur the line between model builder, platform company, and infrastructure landlord. The logic is sensible as a hedge against overbuilding, but it also creates new tensions. Serving external customers imposes reliability, support, pricing discipline, and allocation decisions that are different from running compute mainly for yourself. More broadly, it reinforces the idea that compute itself is becoming a strategic product. In AI, the company with spare chips may end up with as much leverage as the company with the flashiest demo. Across all of this, the common theme is that raw model quality still matters, but it no longer explains the whole game. Workflow design, internal adoption, compute control, and who captures value above the model layer are doing a lot of the real work. That's it for Podkey Slopcast. See you next time. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.